Have you ever met someone so kind, so endlessly giving, that it almost feels unreal? They're the ones who show up when no one else does, the ones who never complain, who somehow always find the energy to help. They're admired, loved, and often called the good ones. But behind that kindness, behind that soft smile, there's a story few ever see. Because sometimes kindness isn't born from abundance, it's born from fear. From childhood moments where being good earned approval, where silence kept the peace, where love had to be earned through obedience. Over time, that lesson digs deep into the nervous system. Be pleasant, stay small, don't upset anyone. And as the years pass, it turns into a habit that feels like identity. They say yes when they want to say no. They apologize when they've done nothing wrong. They give until there's nothing left. And the world rewards them for it. People praise their patience, admire their grace, depend on their kindness, and never realize that behind every act of generosity might be a silent cry for rest. It's easy to miss because their exhaustion hides behind warmth, their sadness behind a smile. But if you look closely, really closely, you can see it. The heaviness in their eyes, the microsecond pause before they say, "I'm okay." It's the invisible burnout that comes from living life as everyone's emotional caretaker. Psychologists call it compassion fatigue, but it's more than that. It's the slow disappearance of the self beneath endless acts of service. It's the kind of exhaustion that no amount of sleep can fix. Because when your entire identity depends on being kind, even resting feels like guilt. That's the dark side of kindness. Not because kindness is bad, but because it's misunderstood. Real kindness gives life. Forced kindness drains it. There's a difference between giving from love and giving from fear, between helping out of joy and helping out of obligation. Studies show that people who constantly prioritize others over themselves are more likely to experience anxiety, depression, and even physical illness. The human brain was not designed for endless empathy without rest. Mirror neurons, the cells that allow us to feel others' emotions, can't tell the difference between genuine compassion and emotional overload. The more you absorb other people's pain, the more your nervous system floods with stress. Slowly, your kindness begins to backfire. You start feeling invisible. You start resenting the very people you're trying to help. You feel trapped, guilty if you say no, but empty if you say yes. And over time, that tension builds into something darker. Because when you silence your needs, they don't vanish. They hide in the shadows. They turn into anger you swallow, frustration you bury, loneliness you deny. And eventually, all those repressed emotions come out. Maybe as irritability, maybe as tears you can't explain, maybe as the quiet thought, "I can't do this anymore." This is when kindness turns against itself. When the person who has always been so strong begins to fall apart in silence. And the cruel part? The world rarely notices because society romanticizes kindness but forgets the cost. We say, be kind, like it's always simple. But we never talk about how hard it is to stay kind in a world that keeps taking. When kindness becomes survival, it stops being a virtue. It becomes a cage. But here's the truth that sets you free. Kindness doesn't mean self-erasure. Real kindness includes you too. Boundaries aren't barriers, they're oxygen. You cannot pour from an empty heart. The most compassionate people are not those who say yes to everyone, they're the ones who know when to say no. Because every no you give to protect your peace creates space for a more honest yes. Think about it. The people who truly care about you don't love you for how much you give. They love you for who you are. Setting boundaries doesn't make you selfish. It makes your love sustainable. Research even shows that people who set clear limits experience deeper, more meaningful relationships because their kindness comes from authenticity, not exhaustion. It's time to unlearn the idea that being good means being small. True kindness isn't soft submission, it's strength with compassion. It's saying, I can love you and still love myself. It's knowing that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is tell the truth, rest, or walk away. Because the world doesn't need more people who are endlessly kind, but secretly breaking. It needs people who are kind and whole, kind and honest, kind and real. So the next time someone calls you kind, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, is this kindness coming from fear or from freedom? From guilt or from love? Because one empties you and the other fills you. The real monster within kind people isn't anger or selfishness, it's self-neglect. But when you finally face that, when you learn to include yourself in your kindness, you don't lose your light, you expand it. You become the kind of person whose compassion doesn't just heal others, but heals yourself too. And maybe that's the truest form of kindness there is. Not the kind that destroys you, but the kind that allows you to live fully, freely, and without apology.